commission doesn't like city council.
Yeah, that's smart, Michelle.
She knows when to keep a tight lip there, don't she?
Might have been on there. Okay. They would have laughed. Because the last 2 council meetings hasn't worked.
Okay, well, we'll start the record then. So we'll welcome everyone out to our Riverdale Planning Commission meeting, August 8th, 2023. I'd like to welcome all those present and note that we are missing Chairman Eskelson, Commissioners Nye and Nolan. They are excused. And we'd now open the meeting for any public comment for items not particularly pertaining to the agenda tonight, but items that they would like to address, if any. And seeing none, we'll move to our presentation and reports. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. I'll just note the few things I noted upstairs in brief. The Trailside or Riverside Flats Apartments was approved. The plan is to start working on clearing and cleaning up the site. If you have any comments or concerns come your way, please send them here to staff and we'll try to address them or get them to the developers' understanding and awareness. But at the same time, know that there are some timelines associated with asbestos and VIN numbers and some of these other things that make that a little harder, that sometimes the public at large doesn't understand. So if you feel like you want to at least let them know that, you're welcome to. But we do anticipate, sounds like even based on what the mayor has put online, a pretty rigid timeline and starting to clear some of that up and seeing some movement there. So if you have any other questions, again, feel free to let me know or Mr. Brooks, and we'll go from there on that. To that point, we have a rezone request that's come forward. We'll have that at the next meeting for the back portion of that. So it'd be lot 2. That would be the, I guess you'd say Ken Garf Automotive parcel. So we'll bring that forward to schedule a public hearing at the next meeting. And then we have a conditional use permit request that has come forward for America First for a digital sign. That'll be at the next meeting. And then I did note that, what was I noted some staff changes with the police department. So that was something that was discussed at the last city council meeting, but there are some, the police chief is retiring at the end of this month. And then I noted that I-15 will have some changes in driving configuration as far as the northbound use, like the northbound exit ramp onto Riverdale Road will be closed as of October at some point permanently. And the new off-ramping, you'll have to take 5600 South exit, go to a light, and they'll have a new frontage kind of slip road that will link up to the old point of that intersection from the exit ramp. So the public at large will have to use that if they want to get off and get to Riverdale Road. For the time being, and I was told today that delay could take up to a year as far as constructing and getting everything finalized with the new slip road that will permanently be in place as part of the 5600 South exit going forward. So that's there, and if anybody has any questions, you can go to the 5600 South project website. You can probably just do a quick search, or if you need an actual web address, I certainly can provide that for whomever. So you could certainly email me and just say, hey, Mike, where do people go if they want to look at, comment, understand the project? Let me know, and I can provide that email information to you. Or I could even shoot it out to the Planning Commission in the next day or two, just so you have access to it if you get any questions.
That'd be awesome.
And then at that point, I am Sean Douglas and myself. I didn't tell you this in the work session, but we are the liaisons for the city. So if there are complaints or questions or issues and we need to go look at them, please let us know that we can communicate. We do quote unquote rank and grade the project as far as the contractors on the site. So if there's things that you hear complaints, even talking to businesses, especially Freeway Park Drive businesses, which we're most sensitive to right now, obviously, please let us know so that we can grade and communicate correctly any issues that may be associated with the project as it starts to move into what they call phase 2, which you'll see again in that October timeline. Right now is phase 1, where you're seeing all the work they're doing. And then I didn't say this earlier, but I do have a little bit of time. I think I communicated 5600 itself will start to be impacted probably around September, October timeframe. You'll start to see that, and what you'll see there is a lane change where they'll have all the lanes move over to the north side of the road while they work on the south side of the road, and then they'll shift it back over about midway through that year time frame. So what is that? Yeah, maybe 6 months or so, 5 months. I don't know. It's kind of as it goes, like any good project goes, right? But they said they'll be shifting it, and then they'll do the north side when everybody's driving on the new south side. So that will start up pretty quickly.
Are they redoing the viaduct and everything
Uh-huh.
to make it 4 lanes all the way down?
Uh-huh.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense project. In some cases, it'll be 3 lanes, and some it'll be 2 lanes. It just depends on the intersection and kind of what the need is when it gets to those points. But it'll be wider than it is now, where it's pretty hard to move. So, yeah, the deck going over the tracks will be completely rebuilt as part of that. So, anyway, yep, there you go. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I'll proceed to our next item, consent items. Consideration for the meeting minutes from July 25th for the work session and the regular meeting. Commissioners, any comments or points to be discussed on that? If none, a motion would be in order, please.
I move that we approve the consent items.
Second?
And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Item E, our action items. First, item 1A, consideration of approval for and recommendation to City Council for Kengar Riverdale amended small subdivision request located at approximately 950 West Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah 84405, as requested by Kimley Horn and the Kengar Automotive Group. Mr. Agate.
Thank you. So reviewing the executive summary, Chris Bick is present tonight representing Kimley Horn Engineering, who's doing the work on behalf of Kengarf Automotive Group. This is, the first portion is the amended subdivision plat. I just did an executive summary covering both, so if you have any questions, let me know. It is on a parcel zoned regional commercial C3. The address specifically is approximately 950 West Riverdale Road and 900 West Riverdale Road for the subdivision. I do have an error in my first paragraph where it says Chick-fil-A. That should actually say Kengarf Automotive Group, representing that they will be also doing a remodel / new build of the Honda automobile dealership building as a component of the subdivision and site plan. There's no public hearing requirement for the meeting this evening. You'll note in the paragraph that with this being an amended subdivision proposal, the appropriate action would be to make a decision relative to the approval, and then an action relative to a recommendation to City Council. It could be in the same motion, but just those 2 elements need to be part of that motion, whatever you decide to do. Any action it were to be a recommended City Council would be brought forward to them at a future date. I would probably hold on it until the site plan was at a point that it was ready to go to City Council, take them both together, unless the applicant group felt like there was a strong reason to do otherwise. So just note that too, that even if there was a recommendation for approval made, the subdivision would sit and wait until the site plan was ready to go with it and take them both to the council at the same time to be more efficient. But that's just a logistical comment. That being said, the actual ownership name on the property platting is Garf Properties La Quinta LLC. The general plan guidance for this property is planned commercial high, and the proposed project, can't say that right, does comply with the land use as it currently is constituted and is continuing to be used. Looking at my first set of comments relative to the plat sheet, I note that on the subdivision, the address location should be reflected on the lots. So, for example, Lot 2 Honda should be labeled as 950 West, and Lot 1 should be labeled as 900 West, which is the Buick GMC property. I have property owner, developer name, and address need to also be on the plat. And then I have approving agency name and address need to also be on the plat. Typically, we just see those in kind of a lower area where there's some open space. No other concerns noted relative to that part of the plat. I do have on here name of approving utility agent, style, stamp, signatures, location not shown on plat if required. Sometimes we see special utility interests and or the developer slash applicant wants to put on a few utilities in some kind of conversation. So that's just noted in yellow that if there are any of those, we should get those on the plat now so that we have the right signing areas. If they're not required or not needed, then that's fine. They don't need to be there. And I can just turn that into an underlined comment in the future. And then the name of the approving departments on the plat, which would be the attorney, the planning commission, the mayor, and the engineer, they're not on the plat either, and they need to be on that plat for signature, obviously. And I do know that the city engineer does have canned language he likes to see on the plat, so he'll provide that hopefully to you, Chris, and get you what you need for that as part of what he wants to see there. On the owner's dedication certificate for subdivision notary acknowledgement, that block is not currently on the plat, so that needs to be shown on the plat. Some of these other things are more site plan. Let's see if there's anything else for the subdivision itself. No, it looks like everything relative to the actual subdivision portion of it. So I'll come back to these other comments hereafter when it gets to the site plan. Looking at staff reports, Mr. Douglas, his comments are relative also to the site plan. I don't see anything that really jumps out as me as subdivision commentary, other than he may want the, I don't even think that one, number one under other, that probably he'll want that on the site plan and not the subdivision. So, and then obviously any response letter from the applicant for comment updates is something he'll be looking for. No comments from the police chief of any concern, and the fire chief's comments are relative to the site plan, so we'll get back to that. Looking at the city engineer's comments, he has add state road number at the end of Riverdale Road on all sheets were displayed, i.e. SR 26. I'm not sure if he'd want that on the plat, but it's something to think about. Lots and parcels are used throughout the plans, plat and Alta. I'm not sure if he wants, I think he's saying he wants those shown consistently so he can identify what's where, but I'm not 100% sure what his comment means there. Multiple instances on the plans, plat, and Alta where Ogden is listed as location stated Riverdale or Riverdale City. Please update Riverdale is misspelled on the Alta plan or Alta plat. There's a comment about irrigation line. We can come back to that one. That's relative to site plan. That did come up in the work session a little bit, Chris, so maybe you can talk to that. It's comment 6. On number 7 on the Alta plan, plat, note 4 has extra space near the end. 8 on the Alta plat, the note seems to be skip from 11 to 16. Are there additional notes or do they need to be renumbered? Number 9, Alta plat doesn't show the existing irrigation line traveling between the two buildings. It also doesn't show the existing storm drain line that's partially getting removed. Yeah, we know about UDOT. The note is on the site plan. Okay, those are all comments that will be part of site plan. Erosion control, all the other items will be on the site plan. I'll cover those in a second. So, and then you'll see the application herein, the plat document that's shown at the end. Like I said, it definitely will need to have some work and some completion to look like a typical plat that we will finalize, but comments are noted above. And with that, I would defer to the planning commissioners if you have any questions for me and or Mr. Bick. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bick, if you'd like to step forward, we can ask any questions that we might have regarding this. If you'd state your name and your city of residence.
Yeah, Chris Bick. I live at 305 West Cassie Way in Saratoga Springs, Utah. Yeah, I mean, thanks for all that. Mike, definitely we can get all those signatory blocks and all the updates on the plat for the next one. Something that we've already started the process of that once you got the comments to us yesterday. So we'll have that all completed. Seemed like most of it was just, kind of the border and some typical things that way. So nothing too worrisome on our side, but happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I just see that there's a lot to be done, and if this was to go forward, are you guys willing to work closely with staff to make sure this gets buttoned up in a timely manner and done correctly?
Yeah, I think these are all comments that we can handle relatively quick. They're items that we've seen and are pretty common. So it should be pretty easy and quick to add in there, and happy to send it back to get one more review if you'd like before the next one as well. So
Do you see anything that's slows you down considerably that might be a concern with what's been mentioned?
no, yeah, most of it's just wording and signatory blocks. So
That one little piece that can always slow you down.
yeah, I'm definitely trying to watch out for those. So didn't see any on that one.
Do you know anything on that irrigation ditch?
We have done a lot of investigation stuff on that ditch. I'm trying to think what the final resolution was on that one. We know there's a piece of it that is capped at the right of way and a piece that's capped on the property. So the section in between where the building is, or our proposed building will go, is not being used currently, and so we're looking into to see if that if the easement itself can go away, or, and trying to track down where the origin is and where the end is. And so far we haven't seen anything that's utilizing. We know for sure nothing's utilizing the section that we're using, but we're just trying to run a fine comb through the rest of it to see if we can just vacate the easement altogether.
So as far as you know, that it's been at least 7 years of non-use.
As far as I know, yeah, because we do know that we went out there and looked, and it is sealed on those ends, and so there's no water within those sections. So yeah.
And then there's a second one that runs through there that's currently being used. Is that correct?
There's one that kind of runs under the building that we're demoing,
Uh-huh.
and so we are planning to leave that one in place as is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. There was water in that one, so we hadn't tracked that one down, so we don't want to disrupt or the flow of it, if somebody else is using it downstream.
And will the new building that you're building after that building's demoed, will that be covering that as well?
No, yeah, that one won't be over the top, yeah.
Okay, so that would make it so that there was access to it should it be needed at some future point.
Correct, yep.
So do you know if there was water flowing through that, or was it just standing water? Any clue as to?
Yeah, it didn't look like it was flowing super fast, and that's part of the reason we're doing kind of all this site work on the other stuff, is because there is a lot of inlets on the western side of the site that have standing stormwater in them, and we think that there is potential that that's the case with the irrigation as well, that irrigation canal. They are two separate lines, like one's not feeding into the other one. We didn't note, there wasn't a significant flow, if any, that I could note going through there. But it is really hard to tell unless you can track down the origin of it and the final destination, because it could be that somebody has it plugged up a little bit as like a weir and is releasing it at a controlled rate, and it might have just been at that elevation or something. So yeah, that's one we didn't want to. It'd be nice if we could just demo it and get rid of it, but we're not confident that that wouldn't disrupt somebody, so we feel it's safer to keep it in place.
And I did witness when we were in the pre-application review, Mr. Douglas was at least trying to understand the system and understood some things. Actually started some comments with Chris and with his associate Bridger about that. And I think that the dialogue was really good in that pre-application review, and I feel like that if Mr. Bick continued to have similar dialogue with Mr. Douglas, they could at least ascertain that. And that's why I said I think the engineer, what would be really beneficial, my recommendation would be all three of you talk about the irrigation system so that our engineer can get up to speed and you can all identify what's what and make the best decisions relative to all those systems.
Sure,
To
yeah.
clear up a lot of these misunderstandings. That's my recommendation.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking maybe different times of the year, the owners could plug it, unplug it, based on the, heavy runoff time periods. It's obviously there. If it's been plugged, for some reason it's plugged. And if they open it during certain times of the year, somebody ought to have control as to who's running that system and know what it's there for or how often it's used.
I know Mr. Douglas had said he's pretty confident one of them is an abandoned old farmer's ditch. He did say that. But again, we're purely speculative at this point. Obviously, absent some good analysis from the applicant group and then some further discussion with the engineer and the public works director. So I think that we'd be a lot better off getting some more definitive answers.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Vick?
And note, obviously, I will come back and circle around the site plan for the second part. So this is just relative to the plat itself.
Okay. Any other?
None, a motion would be in order, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Ken Garf Honda amended subdivision plat proposal, and with the stipulation that all staff concerns and issues be rectified before moving forward.
Would you like to modify that and add also a component to recommend city council something? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yes, and forward it to the city council for their consideration and approval as well.
Do we have a second?
With a favorable approval? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay. Ms. Maragoni, could you please poll the commissioners?
Commissioner Polson?
Yes.
Commissioner Herman?
Yes.
Commissioner Spires?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes. We'll now move on to item 1B, consideration for approval of the Ken Garf Honda preliminary site plan request located at approximately 950 West Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah, 84405 as requested by Kimley Horn and the Ken Garf Automotive Group. Mr. Haggett, please.
Thank you. So this is the second part, that this is for the preliminary site plan. With it being a preliminary site plan, and this may be something that I didn't explain as well to Mr. Bick. I looked at our ordinance a little closer, and so with it being a preliminary site plan, this will be the first review at the planning commission, and then at a future date it would come back for a final recommendation review. That being said, it's the same project. This one specifically is parcel number 2 on the plat that you just recommended for approval and approved. Parcel number 2 is 950 West Riverdale Road for the Ken Garf Honda dealership site. There is no public hearing for a site plan review. The property ownership under the county records is Garf Properties La Quinta LLC, and the general plan is planned commercial high as noted in the previous item. Going over now my review comments relative to the site plan, I do have a few other things I'll address here. Starting with page 3 of my review on exterior lighting devices, signs, outdoor advertising. I didn't see any evidence of new proposed on-site lighting devices, if any are planned, and no new signage plans, locations, or updates. I just highlight them yellow, so if those are on, maybe you could get them updated on the site plan so we could get clear, or even a lighting plan would be helpful. I noted existing dumpster and dumpster enclosures not shown or identified in the packet. I know Mr. Douglas at times likes to know what the plan is for those and how those will be screened, those sorts of things. Under signage, updated building under site signage concepts not provided if any anticipated. That would come out in a design review committee review as well. This, I anticipate, will have a design review committee component for the exterior, because we'll have to look at any elevation, coloration, material changes, which will probably be part of the new building. It'll have a new feature, so we'll want to go through it with that, and then we'll look at the signage plan and then the updated landscaping plan. So that I anticipate that coming, but I did want to note that at current time we don't have that. As it relates to the new and existing building, we're not sure what the new height is of the building. It's just good information for us to have, so I've highlighted that. I don't have any setback identification to know where the building sits on the lot. Again, it's good to have that information just to know where it sits. And then you'll see the under types of construction, the DRC note relative to the structure, texture, color, and appearance that we don't know at this time. Under number of trees, the landscaping count is unknown for trees. There's a tree allocation requirement per City Code 10-14-12 B2E. And I would look at it similarly like we do with the landscaping, just the area that's being improved. Make sure you look at that with your landscaping plan and make sure that the tree count matches what that code requires for that area of improvement. Under the next one with the berming, landscaping or planning hardscaping not shown, proposed landscape screening not shown or identified along the Riverdale Road edge of site plan area to screen lights and traffic from impacting Riverdale Road, and irrigation plan. I think there is an irrigation plan. I found some of this stuff right at the end, so that note I think there is some kind of an irrigation plan in there. But anyway, we need to make sure it meets what Mr. Freeman wants in his review, and I'll get to that in a second. And then xeriscape alternatives being considered, it looks like it. So scratch my comment there. That was a carryover from me not recognizing the landscaping plan initially when I looked at this. Under page 6, internal circulation pattern, parking area circulation not identified or shown. Inquire more if desired. So if you have any interest in that, and that kind of matches along with what the fire chief had talked about with parking fields a little bit. Again, light poles with lighting noted. UDOT approval, need to get final update access approval from UDOT. Like I said, we had a pre-application review, but we need their final sign off, and I know that it wasn't as favorable to your group, so hopefully UDOT will be able to work with you in trying to figure out a solution to what they would look for or want. Under water, existing water meter size, location type not identified, existing fire hydrant not clearly identified. I did eventually find it, but I just couldn't make out what it was on the drawings very well. I had to go and do a Google Street View to see it, so maybe just making sure it's a little more clearly identified where it's at. I know there's a lot of utilities or a lot of features right there on that drawing, and I understand that, but it somehow maybe make the existing one stand out a little bit more is what I'm seeking there. And then any new ones, of course. New power lines to building not shown or no notes regarding power service. There could be a note that even says Rocky Mountain Power, we'll work with Rocky Mountain Power to identify power line locations, but that would need at least be in the note. So something that evidences that. Same for telephone line boxes and new utility lines. Same kind of type of comment there. Not shown, and it would be good if there's even in a note. And then water right transfer documentation, just work with Public Works Department to address whatever water rights they seek per 8-6-3 City Code. So work with Mr. Douglas and then the DRC. So those are my comments. Under stormwater, there's 8 comments there relative to the stormwater design, drainage system operation maintenance plan. We typically see orifice size, location, plan detail, and more information there. Hydraulic separator needs to be placed before stormwater enters underground retention. The SWIP plan comment, all stormwater inspections will needs to include concrete washout, restroom, and dumpster. So he wants to make sure with whatever improvements that the site is temporarily showing that. Notice of intent filed with state for the storm system. No certified retention detention structure size after construction. Ejection well permit tied to that system, and approval from UDOT for stormwater connection into Riverdale Road. He has a note here, is UDOT going to require a traffic study? I'm not sure what they require on that, if they do or don't, but maybe you could just let him know in the future. Underwater, again, he noted the same thing with the water meters, not identified existing water utilities shown on plans. He'd like to see the existing system, existing water service or lines that are not in use will need to be capped at the main line. Please include the notes on the plans. Backflow preventer, location type and size. Proposed irrigation sprinkler system plan, proposed water usage peak demands, provide water shares that are needed if the usage is higher than the current usage. So you'll have to do a study if you haven't, find out what the current usage is, and then identify if it will create more usage and what that will require as far as water rights. That's what he's saying there. Sewer, proposed sewer flows daily and peak, abandoned sewer lines need to be capped at the property line, and a will serve letter from Central Weber Sewer Improvement District needs to be provided. Yes, that is, and they do have that form on their website, the will serve. You can go and get it from their website and then start to fill that out. And then under other, notes requiring all construction materials shall meet Riverdale City standards. Note requiring all missing, non-functioning, or damaged surface improvements shall be replaced. Square footage of impervious surface for each lot, which comes back again to drainage calcs, and then response update comments. The fire department comments, police didn't have any. The fire department comment is, have some concerns or questions about the alley access between the proposed Lot 1 building and the adjacent existing building to the west. Currently, parking has always been an issue. I'd like to know the plan for future parking for employees. So that kind of comes back to a circulation pattern. If we had a little bit of identification of circulation and where staff parking is, where maybe customer parking is, and then just vehicle stock parking generally, that'd be probably better to know. Let's see, going into Mr. Freeman's comments, he has some comments. Item 2 about stormwater measurement and drainage reporting. Item 3, building areas don't add matchup for stormwater calculations. Item 6, we talked about the irrigation line and whether or not it's abandoned and verifying the use of it. Item 10, UDOT will need to review plans for a permit, which is one thing I commented. The comment at item 11 is a lot like Mr. Douglas said about improvement drawings, noting that anything that's damaged will need to be fixed. Electronic copy of the site plans must be submitted to Public Works Department for record keeping when everything's completed. That's a standard note he adds. Site lighting plans, like I noted. 14, there are 2 storm drain lines that are shown to be partially removed and the other part to remain. Where will stormwater go with removal portions of the pipes? So that seems to be tied in some things we're talking about. On the east end appears there'll be a catch basin with no pipe. Under erosion control, some items there noted with the erosion control plan, pretty minor, but if you have any questions, Planning Commission, please let him nor me know. Under site plan issues, there's existing irrigation line shown that goes under the proposed building. And we've talked about that. Indicate the size of the existing water line that will be connected to the new line going into the building. Grading and drainage plan issues, again, some of the similar comments. Will the line remain in place, be plugged? How will it affect the connection to the SDCB on Riverdale Road? Item 2, hydraulic separator for the south section has missing elevation data on the details shown. Hydrodynamic separator needs to be placed upstream on the detention retention system. Item 3, similar to Mr. Douglas, show the orifice size. Utility plan issues include the oil water specifications and location. Item 2, will the roof drains from building be connected directly to storm drainage collection system? If so, the piping needs to be shown with construction details, material slopes. Item 3, where are new and existing fire hydrants going to be located? So matching kind of my comment. And then landscaping irrigation plan not complete. Finally, inspection report is required for underground storage. That's the detail issue. And then you'll see the application thereafter, the technical drainage study that was compiled for this first round for the site with the original storm drain calculations, and then the site plan documentation. I will note too, at the very, very bottom, there is a preliminary landscape plan, although I think what he's looking for and what I'm looking for is a more detailed landscaping plan that has a better understanding of the irrigation and the trees and those sorts of things. So with that, I know it's a lot of information, but I like to be really thorough on the first go and then do less thorough reviews as we go. So I appreciate you indulging and being patient with me. I apologize for making some of you yawn, but I will defer to the Planning Commission if you have any other questions.
That wasn't you. That was me. It was all me.
No,
For
we
me or the
appreciate you
applicant.
being so thorough always, Mike. I know I can say that for all of us.
Yes, you can. Mr. Bick, we'll
Yeah.
have you again address us and any questions and concerns the commissioners have.
Okay, sounds good. I guess first off, just wanted to start out with like kind of an update of what we got on the UDOT meeting, because that was one that was going to be a big one that would impact our accesses or not in our site plan. So we wanted to make sure we got that coordinated prior to making this submission. So we did, UDOT required us to do kind of a traffic study, just like preliminary counts of the existing versus proposed uses, and see if that increased the traffic counts by more than 20%. We did that study and it didn't increase that by more than 20%, so we did proceed with the accesses as are, which falls in line with what UDOT had requested us to do. We submitted that about 3 weeks ago, so we're hoping to get our first round of UDOT comments in the next week. But we don't anticipate that impacting our drives or anything in that way, or requiring a TIS, since the existing uses and the proposed uses were pretty similar. The existing building that's going away, all of that is going to be, the uses for that are going to be reutilized in the new building, along with kind of updating the Honda building itself, and so it's kind of consolidating 2 buildings into one. And so that's kind of where that existing is moved over. So it's just kind of shifting all those uses over to help us to increase our parking count, which was another concern as well. I believe it was an additional 37 parkings that we could get. And it looked like about 8 additional employee parkings included in that. And we'll mark that out on the site plan, customer, employee, and then the rest will be inventory. But we can definitely show that. The fire lane plan, I know we need to get a truck route for the fire chief there to kind of show him where with the truck. I know that aisle on the east side is pretty narrow, and so that one's going to be pretty tough to get in. So we were, our plan was to make a route that went around the west side that would go around through that way, and we'll just get his buy off on that one, make sure that that's all coordinated. We did leave a 26-foot drive aisle on the west side, which is kind of the required fire lane width if you need an access ladder. There is some parking on just the corner that shortens a little piece of that to 19, and so we'll work with him to see if we need to remove those or if those are okay to remain where they are. Those would be cars that are kind of just staged out there getting ready for the shop or whatever they needed to be. They wouldn't be inventory cars, so they would be ones that would be easily moved. But that's one that we'll definitely make sure we're working with the fire chief on that to make sure it works. And then, yeah, we'll get a site lighting plan too. We hadn't included that one on the first one, so that one's in the works as well. The rest of the comments seemed pretty straightforward. We did include, we do have Silverleaf on board to help prepare a SWIP, long-term stormwater management plan, and file the injection well permit and NOI with the state, which I think was a bunch of those comments as well. So that is all being handled, and you should see that shortly as well. We included a hydrodynamic separator for our storm, but we put it on the downstream side instead of the upstream. So that's really, we just need to move a keynote. So that'll be a pretty quick fix. And then I know that there's one on the east side that we're also including. We had coordinated that with Mr. Douglas as well, just to, we're not really touching the drainage on the east side so much, but we do have one inlet that has a little bit of runoff. So in order to, I know there was issues with water getting out that wasn't treated before. So in order to kind of assist with that, we're just going to put one right before it leaves the site so that it gets cleaned up and make sure that everything coming off our site is clean. And then if there's future development on the eastern site, which we're not really touching, then that's when we would update that to make sure that that's in full compliance on that side. But since we weren't touching that side, we had worked with engineering to come up with a reasonable solution for the interim. But yeah, and then most of the comments on utilities, we do have a note. I think a lot of the confusion is that there's that existing kind of small Honda building that has all the utilities to it. And so when they demo it back, they're going to demo that back and then reutilize those same utilities for the new building, that the expansion portion. And so a lot of those utilities will be reused, and so that's why they're not shown kind of out on the site plan. It's just, we just got a note that shows to reuse them, but we can make that a little more clear. It sounds like you in engineering missed it, so it needs to be something that stands out a little more. We're happy to do that. And then on the demo plan, we also have notes that call out direction for the water lines for the existing building. I know the water line needs to be, if it isn't being utilized, it needs to be demoed all the way to the main line, so we have a note for that. And then all the other utilities need to be demoed to the property line, so we have a note for those as well on the demo plan. And then I mean, big ticket items for us is doing that water shares study, getting existing uses versus proposed, and so we can work on that one. And I think that covers the majority of those.
What about
comments
landscaping and
there.
irrigation? Did you want to talk about that just for a minute?
Yeah,
Only a
yeah,
few
we'll
comments.
provide some more details on that one too. I appreciate you providing the clarification with it just being in the developed area. That was one concern we had. And so we had kind of provided a preliminary landscape plan with this one. We'll have a much more robust one for the next submittal. In fact, it's one I probably could have brought with us today. So, yeah.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? For Mr. Beck?
I do kind of, Randy had brought this up, where you have your existing building and then that small sliver of space.
On the east side there. Yeah.
It doesn't look like you're doing anything to widen that. Am I right?
Yeah.
And it already, the way it sits, like, it seems, when I've been there before, it's kind of a hazard as it sits. So with this adding on, do you guys have any ideas of mitigating the backup or the?
I'm going to just add one comment, and you're right on the money on this, Commissioner Spires. The only thing I would note is what you're talking about. I didn't pick up on this till I'm looking at it now. It is part of the GMC parcel, that alleyway, the way it's being subdivided. So there certainly can be a conversation for it.
That's not the GM. That's the hot.
So the subdivision line goes right along the edge of the building, and I didn't pick up on that till just now looking at this. So the actual site plan affects the parcel that's got the Honda building on it. So I definitely think it's a note that we can bring up, but I just wanted to clarify that what's being discussed is actually on the GMC parcel itself. That drive aisle is.
I thought I was looking at the.
But there is another alley that's.
I'm talking about the alley. So
The west side.
Is it the west
the
alley?
west side.
Okay, where the new building is being built, the 26-foot width.
This so it's your alley where you would pull into the Honda dealership now before your proposed addition. So you're at the front of the building.
Yeah.
And then you've got another building here on the west side, and that little alleyway right there. Like I've already like.
Between the existing 20,334
Yes.
square foot building, and then you got the other building, and then there's it looks like an addition, a darker gray addition that's being built in
Correct,
that
yes,
alleyway.
sir.
That's what we're talking
Yes,
about. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
that's the alleyway.
Okay, because I just didn't want to be talking about the other one.
No,
That
I
is the other one is
apologize.
13 feet. I mean, it's very narrow as
Right.
it sits, but it's on the GMC site. so-
Right.
Okay.
No, this is on the Honda side, and
Okay.
I've seen cars backed up there as it is now, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
I'm guessing some people just don't know where. Well, parking's an issue anyway over there.
Right. Yeah.
And so, adding these additions, I can't. Are you guys doing anything to help mitigate this? Is it going to still be backed up? I imagine adding to it's going to just back it up a little more.
Yeah. So.
And maybe this comes to even that flow plan.
Yep.
Your use and flow plan of movement would help. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah,
to.
no, that's a good point. We'll show the flow plan. Another thing that will assist with that is there is a big canopy on that just off the east side of that 20,000 square foot building.
That canopy.
Yeah, so that canopy is going to go away, so that when we put in the addition, we'll still maintain a 20-foot or a 26-foot drive aisle in between there, which would meet the fire code. So the 26-foot would be the spacing in between there.
Because it's not supposed to be a parking spot,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
But people park there.
Yeah,
They
but
go
people
into
are
the
parking
store, they're
there.
getting keys, they're moving car. Like, I know people park there because my late husband, we bought a car there. Yeah.
Maybe we even need, I don't know,
And
some kind
test
of
drives.
indication of no parking signs or really clear no parking signage and even enforcement of it. I mean, I think that kind of, it's fair what she's
I'm not
asking.
trying to be a stick
No,
in
I
the mud,
understand.
but I have
I'm
been
just trying to
there.
think of how we,
Yeah.
maybe a routing plan and then clear signage that it is no parking and,
And for the employees
Yeah.
to know that you don't back this up because a fire happens, something happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be negative Nelly, but
Yep.
people get hurt all the time or bad things happen and I
They
mean,
fly through there too. You know, they come around that blind corner almost,
It's
and they
very
fly
blind.
through there, and they go on both sides of the road just to get around.
in that alleyway
in that
right
alleyway
there.
where you're talking. You know where I'm talking there on the back side in that alleyway where the road kind of comes from the north end like this and coming off of Riverdale Road, it kind of has that jog.
Okay.
Cars come flying around there in a narrow band right there.
Yeah.
That's-
So I see like the canopy to be added on, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So on the existing condition, there is an existing canopy that will be removed, and then there's existing parking stalls that, like 9 spaces on that building. I can show it if I have a
Is
survey.
it behind there?
If you're okay with me coming up to show you.
Sure.
So yeah. Right. Okay, I'm on backwards, but
Which page are you on, Chris, just for the minute?
just the Alta survey. So
Okay.
it's the yeah.
Just wanted to.
So there's existing parking right here. You can kind of see the hatching, this lines real faint right there.
Is that what I'm seeing on page 61?
Yeah, what page are you on there?
Or this one, 73.
It's the Alpha survey, which would be.
Yeah, it'd be before
62?
that, probably 18
Because
pages.
I'm looking at page 61 and it shows lines there.
Yeah, 61 does show some parking lines there. But that is where I'm talking about is this is where people come and they get stacked up in here and it gets stopped. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, so we're removing.
67.
57, 57.
Yeah,
Okay.
page 61 does have that demo plan though, and so that's the existing conditions, and that shows that we're removing all this parking that's
Okay.
in there,
Okay.
and we're removing that canopy
Okay.
there as well. So that'll create a lot more space, and then we're going to do a bump out that allows for them to park the cars that they're working on inside the shop, and instead of out on that drive aisle. And so
So-
that would be
okay.
strictly a drive aisle with no parking.
So
through
maybe like Mike had proposed, I mean, maybe there needs to be some signs up that this isn't a through street, there's no parking. I don't think it matters who you are because it's so narrow right there. I mean, I've been there before and people fly right through there and you're like, whoa.
and it looks like, looking at the comparative, the demo plan to the site plan, all those parking stalls are being removed. Is that
Yes.
correct, Chris?
That is, yeah, correct.
That whole row of it. So that might help too. If there's
Might help
if
a
all the,
lot.
there's not even striping,
Yes.
then there's no understanding that that's where you're supposed to
Right,
park.
it's just like pandemonium.
At that point, if they build on the building and there's no striping, then no one should be parking there, especially if they put signs up on the building.
Yeah, it would be a no parking drive aisle through
Yeah.
there. Yep.
That would probably reduce a lot because right now they can park there, which makes it feel even more narrow.
Right.
Oh, it's really narrow.
When you back out and somebody's coming by you, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
How about also, how many parking stalls is required by the employees? Any idea
Let me double check, see if I have that.
compared
on
to
here.
what you're proposing here on the changes?
Yeah, I know we added 8 additional employee parkings. I'll have to confirm the required amount of parkings on that one.
Because I know they consume a lot of employees there, take a lot of parking spots. Where would they all be parking? In a designated area? That's,
Yeah, we'll in that one of the comments was to provide like on the site plan, show where the customer parking is, where the employee parking is, so that we can show that and have like a circulation plan. So we'll provide that. For
and it'll show justification of how many employees versus how many spots.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, I think if we do, this is no parking.
I think that doesn't. It's something we could note on the site plan, but clearly it's going to come down to management anyway.
True.
So I think a routing plan showing it and it clearly not showing that parking is available addresses a lot of the concerns you're bringing up. But at the same time, if we can advise, we can't require, but if we can strongly advise
Correct.
that Mr. Bick let the leadership know that we feel strongly that there should be some signage in that alleyway. That's
Yes,
something that could be, and then you could even maybe put a note, maybe a little keynote that says like item 5, no parking signage, and maybe have a few spots on the walls or something, maybe just to give satisfaction to the planning
And
commission.
it's from, I mean, we bought a couple cars there from you guys, so, from them, so
Yeah.
it's from experience.
Yep.
Oh, it's valid, I believe. I've seen it too.
Yep.
Sorry, Kent.
No? And this may be a question for later when you do the final site approval, but do you know how they're going to mitigate and carry on the business activity during that demo and
Yeah.
this rebuilding?
Yeah, I know they've got some surplus parking on the, what do you call it, the marine parking lot that's just north of them. And so they would plan to move some of the inventory over there while they demoed that building. And then they could stage that out so that the inventory could come back there and then take the other parking up to that section and build out the building. So,
And I'm sure the planning commissioner is aware, but he's referencing the old Peterson Marine building that Garf now controls and owns. So that whole area is overflow parking for their needs.
yeah.
Where both of these, I mean, item 1A and 1B are identifying similar issues, is there any, I guess both would have to be addressed because they both address the same things before they would be presented to the city council. So really, our final site approval,
It wouldn't even happen at this point. This is a preliminary. So this would just,
Right, this is preliminary.
yeah, but at final,
With the
yeah,
final.
we would want a product that's pretty well massaged with very minor
would
comments.
1A be presented before,
1A doesn't need to come back now based on the last motion.
right?
Oh, yeah.
But would it be presented to the city council before the final site plan? Because I can see where both of these have same issues.
That would be the plan, is that, and that's what I was saying a little earlier, is that we would probably sit on 1A until 1B is ready to go to the council, bring them both together, and then bring them both together as item A, item B on a future city council when they're ready to go to the council. So it's not, so it doesn't feel disjointed, and we're rehashing. Is that the kind of the root of your comment? Yeah, that's how we would like to bring it forward.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we want to do too, just because the plat is kind of dependent on the new building. So if we're not adjusting the building, then we wouldn't adjust the plat either. So might as well do them together.
Okay.
Commissioners, do we have any other questions or comments for Mr. Bick?
I'd like to make a motion for approval with recommendations and staff, working with staff recommendations as well. For the Ken Garf Honda preliminary site plan request located at approximately 950 West Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah 84405, as requested by Kimley Horn and the Ken Garf Automotive Group. Also, with the city council's approval as well.
You don't need to do that at this point. No, because it's going to come back to the planning commission.
Okay.
The next time you'll want to do something like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're okay.
Okay. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Michelle, would you poll the commissioners, please?
Commissioner Spires?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes?
Commissioner Polson?
Yes.
Commissioner Herman?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Bick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, move to item F, comments from the planning commission, if any. I have one. There is, and I don't know who to point this to, whether do anything about it, or whether I contact the Public Works. But those dumpsters on the east side of the school.
How did I know you're going to bring that up? So what if I told you I have an answer for everything associated with that? And I just found that out yesterday. What if I told you I just barely found that answer? And what if I told you I guessed that somebody from the Planning Commission might bring this up? So, so I can read your minds. No.
You're hired.
So,
I love you.
actually, you, believe it or not, your previous planning commissioner, Mr. Jones, Blair Jones, called me and was frustrated about it, and said that, and he thought the city could do something about it. And I said that's between the school district and their private recycle provider. And so he said, "Oh, well, that's what I needed to know." So he called the school district, got some answers, called me back, and told me that the gentleman who's over that program wasn't there, but there's a lady that works with the gentleman and said that that program is being discontinued between the provider of the recycle service and the school district. So those bins actually will be removed from the site at a later date and all the garbage with it, and that program will no longer be available to the city as a result of that relationship ceasing. So in the meantime, though, they're not being proactive in taking care of their responsibility. And so I advised our planning commissioner at the time that, ex-planning commissioner, our now resident, that if there continues to be a concern, the next best option would be to let the code enforcement officer know, and then he can start that dialogue with the school district and the recycler to clean it up. But yes, I saw it today, and a mountain is an understatement of what it's become. It's insanely,
Someone there with carpet and
it's very problematic.
People.
Yeah. But it is unfortunately a school district problem. That's the tricky part about it. However, where we can flex the muscles with code enforcement, I believe. Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing that, Mike. 'Cause
And thanks for bringing it up, because I kind of suspected it would come up.
saw it today, and some guy with padding and carpet, and I'm going, what in the heck?
Yeah.
So it's actually the school district's property, not Riverdale City's.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's an overflow parking lot too with the school district. Yep.
Okay.
That's good to know, to let people know that.
Any other comments from the commission?
No, I'd just like to say again, we missed you the last meeting, and Michelle did a great job taking care of us and keeping us on track.
That's what I heard. Thank you.
Glad your sore throat's gone away.
Yeah. Not fun.
No, that's miserable stuff. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.